Ever wondered how the fearless gunslingers who forged Wild West legends finally met their match? From dimly lit saloons to dusty Bolivian hideouts, their last moments reveal startling twists that outshine the myths we've memorized since childhood. So, saddle up, because you're about to ride straight into the untold final days of the Wild West's greatest legends. Jesse Woodson James had spent 16 years one step ahead of Passes and Pinkertons, yet by March 1882, his frontier world had shrunk to a rented clapboard house at 1318 Lafayette Street in St. Joseph, Missouri. Calling himself Thomas Howard, he planned one last bank raid while relying on the only gunmen still at his side, brothers Robert and Charlie Ford. When Frank James rode out on 27th of March to scout the target, Jesse's circle tightened to the Fords alone. All week he paced the parlor, comparing route maps with them, revising signatures for forged drafts, and testing a left-handed scrawl to mask his handwriting. Curtains stayed drawn, saddled horses waited in the alley, Pinkerton detectives haunted his thoughts, but he never sensed the treachery across the table. Robert Ford had already bargained with Governor Thomas Crittenden for the $10,000 reward and a pardon. The morning of 3rd April 1882 broke warm and still. Inside the front room, Jesse remarked that visible sidearms might alarm the neighbors and set his own Smith & Wesson on the sofa. Glancing up, he noticed a lithograph of a galloping horse hanging crooked above the mantel. Wanting the house neat before his wife entered, he stepped onto a chair, back turned, and reached for the frame. Robert Ford drew a hidden .44, leveled it, and fired. The bullet entered behind Jesse's left ear, shattered his skull, and lodged against the upper jaw. He pitched forward dead at 34. News raced through town. Souvenir hunters clawed away blood-spattered wallpaper. The Fords surrendered, were indicted, and pardoned the same day, but collected only a fraction of the reward and universal disgust. Jesse's mother buried him on the Kearney farm beneath a stone, declaring he was murdered by a traitor and coward. In 1995, DNA tests on the remains proved the legend true. Jesse James never escaped St. Joseph. Wyatt Earp, lawman of Dodge City and survivor of Tombstone's Corral, outlived most frontier gunfighters, drifting from camp to camp before settling in Los Angeles with his wife Josephine. In December 1928, chronic cystitis and asthma pinned the 80-year-old to a brass bed in their modest bungalow at 4004 West 17th Street. Josephine nursed him, rubbing menthol on his chest and reading telegrams from silent film friends William S. Hart and Tom Mix. When fever ebbed, he dictated fragments of a never-finished memoir, insisting the stenographer note, "Bat Masterson had the quickest mind, Doc Holliday the quickest hand." Christmas passed with Earp propped against pillows, silver-tipped cane within reach. Each sunrise he shaved, saying a man should die clean. On 6th of January 1929, a fierce Santa Ana wind rattled the windows. Earp coughed blood, muttered that desert dust smells like Tonopah pay dirt, then asked Josephine to fetch his old Remington revolver. She hid it instead. By 11th January, his kidneys were failing. A doctor administered morphine. He slipped into delirium, once pointing at an empty doorway and ordering, "Hold it right there, Ike," as if confronting Ike Clanton again. At dawn on 13th of January, he stirred, pressed Josephine's hand and whispered, "Suppose," his final, unfinished word. He died minutes later, aged 80. No state offered an official salute. Hart and Mix pooled studio cash for cremation at the California Crematory. Mix set a Marshall badge wreath. Hart delivered the eulogy. Young extra Marion Morrison, future John Wayne, later copied Earp's relaxed stride for screen roles. Ashes traveled north by train and were interred in Josephine's family plot at Colma's Hills of Eternity Jewish Cemetery, an ironic rest for the Methodist gunfighter. When Josephine died in 1944, her ashes joined his beneath a simple stone. Wyatt Earp, 1848-1929. John Henry Doc Holliday, 1851–1887, was a Georgia-born dentist whose tuberculosis forced him west, transforming him into a professional gambler, crackshot, and Wyatt Earp's most loyal ally. Although folklore paints him as a relentless gunfighter, reliable evidence credits him with no more than 5 killings. A lethal reputation grew largely from dime novel embellishment and his icy nerve at the card table. By summer 1887, Holliday's health had collapsed. Hoping mineral vapors might ease his ravaged lungs, he took a room above the Occidental Saloon in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Each dawn, he sat in the town's steamy bathhouse, laudanum vial in hand, trying to stanch brutal coughing fits that left blood on his handkerchief. Afternoons found him downstairs, skeletal but sharp-eyed, cutting cards with shaky fingers. He amused onlookers by lighting 2 cigars at once, one for me, one to fool death, and still flashed the sardonic humor that had terrorized foes in Tombstone. On 7th November, he insisted on one last poker game. Witnesses said he murmured, odds under his breath, declared the pot my soul, yet folded with a faint grin before staggering upstairs. In room 6, he collapsed onto a narrow bed, delirium carrying him through the night. Fevered whispers referenced unseen opponents. Queen, over deuce, Fanny, play your hand! And at some point, he raised his nickel-plated Colt toward the ceiling, denting the plaster. Proprietors later concealed the mark behind a photograph of the OK Corral. Around 3 a.m. on 8th November 1887, the coughing stopped. A nurse found him, motionless, half smiling, eyes fixed as if awaiting a final card. He was 36. Townsfolk laid him out in the saloon's back room and cobbled together a plain coffin. Mourners were few, but the stories flowed. Holliday had finally lost, a hand he could not bluff. Curious details surfaced quickly. Some swore he scrawled mercy on the wall, though renovators never confirmed it. His famed Colt, gifted years earlier to San Francisco barkeep Simon Riley, reappeared under glass in that saloon. A farewell letter to his companion, Big. Nose Kate Haroni, found unsent in his trunk, revealed unexpected tenderness. The silver false teeth he kept from his dentistry days vanished, purloined, locals believed, by an undertaker seeking a morbid souvenir. In 1942, showmen exhumed his remains for a traveling Wild West exhibit, but outraged residents reclaimed and reburied him beneath a modest stone in Linwood Cemetery. Visitors still leave poker chips and cigars on the grave marked simply, "Gambler Doctor Friend." Holliday's death came not in a blaze of gunfire, but in a lonely room, lungs surrendering to disease. Yet the legend endures. A man who swapped dental drills for revolvers, who stared down enemies and consumption alike with grim wit, and who played his final hand with the calm of one who'd spent a lifetime calculating odds. William H. Bonney, better remembered as Billy the Kid, was only 21 in the summer of 1881, yet the Lincoln County War had already made him New Mexico Territory's most hunted fugitive. After his December 1880 capture, a Mesilla jury found him guilty of murdering Sheriff William Brady. Judge Warren Bristol set the hanging for 13th of May 1881. Despite manacles and round-the-clock guards, Billy watched for a crack in the routine. Late on 28th of April, he exploited one. Deputy James Bell escorted him from the outhouse back to the Lincoln County Courthouse. At the stairwell turn, the kid slipped a hidden revolver from his coat, shot Bell in the back, and sprinted upstairs. There, he seized Deputy Bob Ollinger's loaded shotgun, left propped against a wall, and fired both barrels through a window as Ollinger rushed across the street. The blast hurled the deputy against the adobe jail, dead before he hit dust. Chiming the courthouse clock mockingly, Billy collected firearms, cut shackles with a pickaxe, and rode out on a stolen horse, calling, "So long, boys!" Territory papers screamed for vengeance. Governor Lew Wallace raised the reward to $500, and Sheriff Pat Garrett began a methodical search. Garrett traced the kids south through the Capitan Mountains to the Pecos, and finally, to Fort Sumner, where Billy trusted the Maxwell family. Near midnight on 14th of July, 1881, Garrett crept into Pete Maxwell's dark bedroom as Billy approached, looking for a late-night snack of beef and tortillas. Hearing boots, Billy called in Spanish, "¿Quién es? ¿Quién es? Who is it?" The question was his last. Garrett's Colt fired twice. One bullet pierced the kid's heart. He fell beside Maxwell's bed, gasped once, and died within minutes. Word spread by dawn. The kid was gone, buried the next day in Fort Sumner's military cemetery. Yet his legend, fueled by dime novel bravado and that unanswered "Quién es?" never surrendered to the grave. Robert Leroy Parker, Butch Cassidy, spent his final year drifting through Andean mining towns with Harry Sundance Kid Longabaugh, both posing as American engineers. By October 1908, weary of exile and short of cash, they targeted the Aramayo Franca mining payroll, 2 mule-mounted bags of silver coins and banknotes moving from Tupiza to Quechisla, Bolivia. November 1908, near the village of Huacapero, Cassidy and Sundance ambushed the couriers, seized roughly 90,000 Bolivian pesos, and pushed north toward San Vicente, a speck of adobe houses at 14,000 feet. The Bolivian cavalry telegraphed ahead. A 4-man detachment and local gendarmes prepared an interception. November 1908, dusk. Entering San Vicente, the outlaws sought a night's shelter at miner Bonifacio Casasola's boarding house. Unaware soldiers were closing in. Around 8 p.m. gunfire shattered the doorway. Witnesses heard an English shout, "Stop that, you devils!" followed by continuous rifle snaps. 2 soldiers fell. Cassidy and Sundance retreated to a single mud-walled room, horses dead in the corral. After midnight, the firing lulled. A neighbor later testified to muted voices inside, one badly wounded, gasping. A final volley rang out, 2 shots spaced, seconds apart. When troops stormed the room at daybreak, both Americans lay on the floor, Cassidy bullet-wounded in the forehead, Sundance shot through the temple. Bolivian reports concluded the healthier Cassidy had killed his mortally wounded partner, then himself, a pattern common among cornered bandits of the Pampas. Buried hastily in San Vicente's cemetery under wooden crosses reading "Inglés sin nombre," nameless Englishman, the pair left no confirmed relics, but a rusted Mauser and a blood-stained Remington saddle. 20th century exhumations found mismatched DNA, fueling theories that Cassidy slipped away to Patagonia or Utah. Yet the San Vicente shootout remains the most credible and grimly fitting final chapter for the Wild Bunch's smiling strategist.